So fight one, we get Becky the Man Lynch versus Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
Rhea's
The man,
introduction,
Becky Lynch. Yep.
yeah, and they're like, I thought it was weird the reading from her book bit because I didn't know anything about her. So like as an outsider, I was like, what the hell is this? And then once they started explaining that she's like a New York Times bestseller and these are from her book, it's like, okay, it makes a little more sense.
Yes.
But that Rhea Ripley, that intro, I don't know about that band, Motionless in White, at all, but that was a cool wrestling intro to have the live band there, to have her like acting out with the lead singer.
And here's the thing where I was going to get into that. Okay. And this is going to be one of my notes for production as a whole, right? So for WreslteMania, and this will tie into what you just said about Rhea Ripley's entrance. For WreslteMania, you want the giant pop and circumstance. You want every entrance to feel big and important and to really capture the eye because it's your biggest event. It's your swan song of the season, if you will, right? Your season finale of everything that you've done for the past calendar year. So you want all your wrestlers to have this eye-capturing entrances. And one of my notes for production as a whole, the majority of entrances at this year's WrestleMania didn't have the circumstance that, or like the pop and circumstance that I was hoping for, outside of a handful of ones. And my first note is, one of the first exceptions is Rhea Ripley, because Rhea Ripley had like you said, they had a live band performance, and a lot of live band performances in wrestling have not been really good. Typically, like there's just something about like either the vocals just don't sound right, the instrumentation doesn't sound right.
I mean, every artist probably needs their own specific sound person doing things. So if you're trying to mix a lot of them in at once, I could see where you'd lose some stuff. But that one was solid.
No, this one was solid, and
she's creepy as hell. She does a good job of being creepy as hell.
She's a goth mommy. She's a muscular goth woman. What can we say? She has a unique look that you don't see really anywhere else on that roster. Nobody else on that in the women's division has that look. You can't really find that outside of the indies.
It was
and even then, it's so natural.
It was shades of Kane and Undertaker, but with some kind of weird like alien element to it also.
Marilyn Manson probably is what you're thinking about.
Or, I mean, we could say there's that one tag team group that has at least the corn masks that they're wearing.
Oh man,
Judgment Day, is that what they're called?
Well, she is part of Judgment Day, but that's not
the two that were fighting from Judgment Day in that big.
Yeah, they all kind of have a similar set, but hers is like more natural.
We'll get to my confusion on tag team matches later.
Oh yeah, you're good. That's what I'm here for. But yeah, she had a great entrance. Becky Lynch's entrance was just. I'm like, all right.
I was not hyped. That's why I was not hyped. Out first, and so I was like, oh, this is not gonna be a great fight. And then they do the Rhea Ripley one, and I was like, okay, someone here has some production.
So and we'll talk about the match because right now we're just going through production, right? Or do you want to go into the match?
Let's go into the match here while we're at it.
All right. You tell me your thoughts on this, and then I'll go into what I felt about.
I thought it was funny that the first like 4 moves they did, where they were just like mirroring the same move the other one did to them, which kind of took me out of it just for a second because I was like, okay, you just did the exact same thing the person before you did to you. But watching it in general, Rhea Ripley is so effing strong. Like if that was just like a street fight, I think she wins that thing in about 10 seconds.
Oh, absolutely. She is an absolute.
She's
a juggernaut. She's a juggernaut.
She's awesome.
She's a physical freak of nature in the best way possible.
I do think it's funny when they trade slaps back and forth. That's always a funny bit. I don't know why. It makes me laugh. And then there's a lot of and this happens. I don't think it really happened much until the final fight again of both people being mad, thinking they got the 3 count at one point.
Yeah, and you got to sell that frustration.
It's
right?
awesome. Yeah, they do. They like I said, both of them, great job. Their acting is awesome, I think.
Yeah. So
or whatever you want.
Here's my notes for the match, and it's my first general notes, like first impression, because I feel like maybe I would like this match more if I watch it back. But here's the thing. This was the opening match, and it was built towards WrestleMania. Becky Lynch wanted to have the opening match at WrestleMania. She's already had the main event years ago, and now she wanted to be the opener. Because if you're not going to go on last, you might as well go on first, right? That's like the idea. That's the mindset nowadays. To me, this was a solid match, but it wasn't the right one, in my opinion, to open the show. Because in my opinion, right, and there are going to be people that kill me over this, but in my opinion, your opening match for your biggest event should be something that is fast-paced, gets the crowd going, and you really are capturing that initial wave of energy that the crowd's going to come in with. Because here is the thing. Let's say they announced 72,000 plus people were in attendance, right?
They announced 72,543.
Right. So you could probably, in all seriousness, think about 10 to 12,000 people in the crowd were at NXT Stand and Deliver, probably, right? They were probably at NXT Stand and Deliver earlier in the day. So they've already been through about 3 hours of wrestling. And then you have other people in the crowd who have probably been partaking in other non-WrestleMania things, right? Or just something that doesn't involve being at Lincoln Financial Field. So they're coming in already hyped up, right? You're in an open air stadium. You as WWE should know that crowd noise will dissipate quickly in an open air stadium, unless you're at Seattle, where it's built. The way they built it is just kind of designed to retain sound to some extent. You come in with a match that you have two very talented performers, but the build to this match has been rather lackluster. Rhea Ripley, everybody wants Rhea Ripley to win. She is supposed to be the heel in this case, but she's getting babyface reaction. People love Rhea, and they're kind of bored of Becky because Becky's been around for so long. So you come in, you have a very solid match. It's really good, but it's not hitting like a fever pitch to really capture that audience energy that I think the match that followed this one should have switched places, right? So we'll talk about these other two matches, but I think the following should have happened. I think the first match should have been the ladder match, the second match, the Rey Mysterio match, and then third should have been Becky and Rhea, because I think that second match kind of serves to kind of quell the audience at the beginning, get them back up, and then once you have them back up again, you come in with your heavy hitters and Rhea Ripley, Becky Lynch, and then you continue to build. But these women have earned the right to open up a WrestleMania match, so I get it. It was a good match. It just wasn't my preference for your opening.
And also, as this being the first WrestleMania I've ever watched, I thought it was a great first match. I honestly might believe that I prefer watching the women wrestlers because they're just so quick. And I really enjoy, and we'll get to it later. There's some stuff, especially with the main event, where I'm like, man, this is just, and I get it. It's a longer match, but they're just slow. It's like a super heavyweight boxing match where it's like after the first minute, you're like, oh my God, these guys can't even move anymore. I do like watching the women fly around the rink. That got me ready to watch the rest of this. But again, I'm outside. I don't know either of these women, so I was cheering for Becky. She seemed like the clear underdog there. But again, I really enjoyed it as my first WrestleMania match I ever watched. I was satisfied with that one. But Rhea Ripley did win. We should say.
Yeah, she retained her title, and she won that very same title last year at WrestleMania, so she's gone a whole calendar year, and we'll see what happens next. I'm very curious what they do to build up their next challenger, because right now it doesn't feel like there's anybody ready to challenge her except for one person.
What title is that? Because there's so many 8,000 different titles that I'm trying to keep up with now.
Yeah, so you have the WWE Women's Championship. It's held by Io Sky, and then Rhea Ripley has the Women's World Championship. It's just World Championship. Okay. It's supposed to be the female counterpart to the Men's World Heavyweight Championship.
And there's also the confusing American one.
So you have your United States Championship. Is there a
women's United States champion?
No. However, you might have seen on wrestling Twitter, if it's starting to get into your feed, that NXT has debuted their North American women's championship. But that's
Cool.
an NXT thing. That's something you don't have to necessarily worry about on the main roster.
All right. Did you have any other thoughts on Lynch versus Ripley before we get into one of the most confusing things I've ever seen in my life?
Oh yeah. Just final thoughts. For nobody get me wrong, I thought the match was good. I think they both had better matches. And I think what didn't help these women out, and it's no fault of their own, it's just that Rhea Ripley is just too damn lovable, too damn like good at what she does to be the heel in this situation. And they really, and she's in a heel faction. She's in a heel group, the Judgment Day. So it's really hard to isolate her into a baby face outside of the group. And then when she's back in the group, just be bad all of a sudden.
I don't think they need to. I think it's good to have a heel win sometimes. Oftentimes, like that's a good thing.
No. It's not. It's not me complaining that a heel won. It's just complain. It's just a nitpick of like what would have served the match better from a storytelling perspective is if Becky Lynch worked heel on Rhea Ripley as opposed to Rhea Ripley being the heel, because people don't want to boo Rhea Ripley.
Okay.
Right. And you can kind of build on the fatigue of having Becky Lynch been around for so long by making her be heel. You're like, boo! But it's hard to boo her too, because like, oh, she's a mom with a best-selling book, and like she's like this underdog in this situation. So it's just me nitpicking the build of like what their opposing sides were. But that's just a little nitpicking here and there. Either way, good match, one of the better ones on the card.